to order, please rise. I ask everyone to keep in your prayers and thoughts the victims and their families of the tragedy in Boston. Dennis, the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act NJSA 10:4-10 has been complied with and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood.
Here.
Freeholder Barrett Valente.
Here.
Freeholder Delina. Freeholder Polos. Here. Freeholder Tamaro.
Here.
Freeholder Valenti. Freeholder Director Rios.
Here. We have some recognitions.
A proclamation for Alcohol Awareness Month that Director Rios will present to Steve Liga, Executive Director of National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. A commemorative resolution for Ann Johnson on her 105th birthday. A commemorative resolution for the AFL-CIO Labor Council Awards and Scholarship Brunch.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, second by Freeholder Barrett Valente. Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood.
Yes.
Freeholder Barrett Valente.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rios.
Yes. Is anyone here from the NCCAAD? Steve Liga, anyone here representing Steve Liga? No? Okay, we'll make the presentation at a later date. Correspondence?
Each freeholder has been provided with a list of correspondence received by the clerk's office since our last meeting. This correspondence will be kept on file in the office of the clerk of the board for reference.
Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, second by Freeholder Barrett Valente. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of freeholders. Freeholder Armwood. No report? No, sir. Okay. Freeholder Barrett Valente.
Thank you, Director. Our Finance Department has finalized the insurance claim for Superstorm Sandy damage to the Old Bridge Waterfront Park, and the county will be receiving in excess of $2 million within the next week. We are also pursuing claims for other damaged property due to Superstorm Sandy. We have a new financial system and working along with Freeholder Polis, and under finance, the sheriff last year began the implementation of their new civil processing finance system. Not only has this implementation of this new system brought in $500,000 in unexpected funds as a result of the changes in procedures, it has also brought a new level of efficiency to the sheriff's civil processing financial operation. We estimate that this new system will save over 50 hours in staff time previously consumed by data entry and paper. And also, along working with Freeholder Polis, Emergency Preparedness and Homeland Security, on tonight's agenda, the Budget Amendment Resolution 682, 683, and 686 address the county's continued commitment and efforts to search out our grant opportunities and availabilities of funds in the areas of Homeland Security and emergency preparedness. As recent events have made clear, this is an area that cannot be neglected. And excuse me for my little squeaky voice tonight. That's my report, Director.
Thank you, Freeholder. Excuse me, Freeholder Polos.
Thank you. We continue to make progress with the construction of our new radio tower down in Sayreville, which will become the heart and soul of the county's radio system. And we're, again, continuing to proceed with enhancements to our system to be able to ensure its integrity, not only on a day-to-day basis, but during severe weather storms, with the anticipation that a Superstorm Sandy could eventually occur again. We want to make sure that we have no breakdown in communication during those types of episodes. I want to again thank Carl Kleberg for the work that he's been doing on our resource recovery and planning with our communities. As the board knows, we've been providing them copies of his updated weekly reports. I think he's been working extremely closely with our communities to try to make every dollar available, accessing different people at different levels of government, both the state and federal level, to ensure that our communities have the best access for information, also for funding, assisting us with our grant applications and so forth. So again, I think he's been a great addition during this process and has been extremely helpful in trying to help us recover from that storm. On April 24th, as the board knows, in the evening, I believe 7 o'clock, right, Joe? We're going to 6 o'clock. We will be having a little celebration at the Fire Academy. We've invited our entire emergency service volunteer ranks. These are volunteers who help us in first aid, in fire, in search and rescue. Every volunteer who's been involved in emergency management as well, who's been involved with the county, many of whom obviously were involved on a day-to-day basis during Superstorm Sandy. But the entire cadre of volunteers are being invited for a volunteer appreciation night. We're going to have a little food and give them some certificates for their participation. You know, ladies and gentlemen, with all the paid staff that we have in the county, we are no different than communities. If we didn't have a great group of volunteers to help us, particularly in times of great emergency and large-scale emergencies, we simply wouldn't have the manpower to be able to handle those types of situations, and the cost would be prohibitive to this board and to the taxpayer. So it is something that I felt was important, and certainly the staff agreed. This is something that we should be doing on an annual basis to recognize the contributions that these emergency service people make to our county, to our specific communities. Be mindful of the fact that they are in harm's way when they're out there. They're out there for many, many hours. Sometimes they're out there for days on end, as was the case with Superstorm Sandy, and in good weather and in bad weather. So I think it's the least that we can do as a county is to say thank you to them for their continued support and cooperation. Last but not least, we heard yesterday about the actions, or I should say the inaction that took place at the Senate level when it came to trying to make some, I call them minor modifications to the gun laws and to try to implement some elements of better gun control. As a sitting elected official, as chairman of public safety, I can only say how disappointed I am in the fact that nothing gets done. It is unfortunately reminiscent of other federal legislative initiatives that sometimes also don't get done. It would seem to me that there's no better time for both sides of the aisle to agree on something, and that is that something needs to be done. And it seems unfortunate at best, if not criminal at worst, that there seems to be this logjam and no interest to try to create any type of sensible control to make sure that firearms are not getting in the hands of the wrong people and people that shouldn't have them. If the massacres that have occurred, if the deaths that have occurred, if the day-to-day shootings that occur in some of our urban centers and cities aren't enough to get people's attention, I just don't know what it takes to get the federal legislative staff to actually sit down and come to some agreement. And I'm not even trying to suggest what that agreement should be, but clearly whatever we have isn't working, and you would think that great minds, or minds, if they're not great minds, could at least sit down and come to some agreement that something more needs to be done. So it would seem to me that perhaps the board should consider at a future meeting doing some type of a resolution that could be sent to our federal delegation, at least encouraging them, even though there seems to have been a roadblock this time, encouraging them to continue the fight, to try to come up with sensible modifications to our gun laws to ensure that people who shouldn't be armed are not armed. And with the board's approval, maybe we can put a draft together of that for the next meeting. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Freeholder Paulos. Freeholder Tamaro.
Thank you, Director. And Mr. Paulos, I couldn't agree with you more. It's unfortunate that a simple majority doesn't win anymore. The votes were there, but of course, as you know, you need 60 votes in order to carry the law. So I would agree, and hopefully by our next meeting we can put a resolution together supporting your idea.
Thank you.
Our Master Gardeners program on Saturday, April 27th, the Marine and Coastal Service Building at the G.H. Cook campus in New Brunswick. They'll be having their annual sale of a variety of tomatoes, including Rutgers and other heirloom varieties, rare herbs, peppers. And don't forget to bring your wagon to carry the starter plants. You can call the Master Gardeners Helpline at 732-389-5220. This past Sunday at our Cultural Heritage, the Cornelius Lau House, we opened a new exhibit. It's called The New Deal, the WPA in New Jersey. It's a great exhibit. It's free. Please go and attend it. It shows you what went on from 1933 to 1942 and how New Jersey played a part in putting people back to work. Thousands of men benefited from this program from 1933 to 1942, building parks, clearing roads, building bridges. And they only earned $30 a month, and they had to give 25 of that to their family, and they only kept $5. So it's a great exhibit, and our director, Anna, did a wonderful job, and her staff on putting the exhibit together, and please go visit it. Yesterday, Ron Rios and I had the honor of going to our Perth Amboy Votech School, who received the designation of a blue ribbon school. There's 269 schools nationwide that received this honor. Only 17 schools in New Jersey and only 1 school in Middlesex County, and that was our Middlesex County Votech School. Congratulations to our administrators, our teachers, and the staff that work there, and of course the students who worked so hard to achieve this honor. This past Sunday, I took a ride on the Middlesex County Greenway, and I haven't been on it probably since December, and I want to say how well it looked. As a matter of fact, they were out there cleaning up this past Sunday. Looks like the drainage issue on the one side of the bridge has been fixed, and our future criminals of the world haven't done much damage there either. So I want to thank the county for doing such a great job of keeping the Greenway the way it looks. And that's my report, Director.
Thank you, Freeholder Tamaro. I would just like to make some comments and observations in the past few weeks of things that I observed or did. I attended the Promise House ribbon cutting ceremony in New Brunswick, and this is a shelter. It's a department house that we are working and continuing to drive that passion of Freeholder Valente, who always is trying to end homelessness, and this was another project that is helping people get off the streets. I attended a meeting for the Chronic Disease Coalition at the Fire Academy on Thursday, April 11th, and it was a great meeting, attended by many people, not only from within Middlesex County, but even outside of Middlesex County. We had a pancreatic cancer meeting at the Fire Academy on Friday, April 12th. And that pancreatic cancer walk is June 8th at 9 a.m. at Roosevelt Park, and it's again to bring awareness and raise funds for cancer research, for pancreatic cancer research. I attended the dedication of the entranceway for the Menlo Park Veterans Home this past Saturday, and it was really nice to see the job that was done for that, for our veterans. Of course, anything that we do for our veterans is a move in the right direction. And as Freeholder Tamaro stated, I just want to reiterate, it was great to participate in the ceremony for the Blue Ribbon Award for our vocational school in Perth Amboy. Again, 1 of 17 in the state and only 1 in Middlesex County. It's a great achievement. And on next Friday, April 26th, we will be having our memorial service for Workers' Memorial Day. It will be held at the Ernsted Road Project, which will be at the corner of Karen Street and Johnson Lane. And that's to bring awareness for worker safety, no matter what kind of worker it may be, from a clerk in an office to a construction worker or workers anywhere. Any worker should be conscious of safety measures to make sure that no one gets hurt and goes home the same way they came into work. Okay. At this point, resolutions to be added.
Yes, Director. Resolution number 13-785, entitled Accept the Sole Proposal of Reliance Graphics in the total amount of $385,060 for proposal sheets number 1 and number 2 for the furnishing of printing and mailing services for the primary and general elections 2013 as required by the Middlesex County Office of the County Clerk. Proposal P-1317.
Is there a motion to accept, to add that to the agenda?
Motion to accept. And to add.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belante. Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood,
Yes.
Freeholder Barrett Belante,
Yes.
Freeholder Polos,
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro,
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rios.
Yes. Okay, any resolutions to be amended?
No.
Any resolutions to be held?
No.
Any resolutions to be voided?
No.
All right, at this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public on any resolutions on the agenda. Anyone from the public that would like to speak on any resolutions only? Yes, sir.
Robert Spiegel, 206 Tyler Road, Edison. With regards to the resolutions on the agenda, that's for the entire agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Regarding Resolution 13725R and also 727, one can't help but notice when you look at a number of these resolutions how they're sole bidders for services that the county takes. And I wanted to ask, what is the process for putting out for bids for the contracts, especially large contracts like this, where we only get, especially with the economy the way it is, just one bidder on a contract, especially things like road services that are very competitive?
Al, would you, I'm sorry, Ann.
Yes, we follow the laws of the New Jersey Local Public Contracts Law, where we advertise our bids in the newspaper, and we also advertise them, on our website. And you like to bid, open public bid, anybody can bid on it as long as they're qualified. If we don't get a bid out the first time out, we go a second time. If we don't get a bid the second time, we go a third time. We don't bid the third time, we negotiate. We have the authority to negotiate with the bidders at that point. But there are a lot of projects or services that are specialized, and that's where that's the instances where you only get a sole bid.
Okay. Well, I certainly understand the specialized services. There are quite a few out there. But certain ones, like the milling for roadway, that's materials, that's there's a lot of companies out there that do that type of service. And the way of putting ads in the newspaper, which used to be the way things were done before electricity, is kind of a little outmoded to try to get the best possible bidders and best value for the dollar. Why doesn't the county use their website to put out their bids for requests for services so that people that want and can bid on projects can go to the county's website and see anytime you put a bid out, instead of just putting it in the paper or...
It's listed, they're advertised on our website. They can also be downloaded from our website.
Okay.
All our bids and proposals that we have.
And they're put up at the same time that the ads...
They're put on the website the first day that they appear in the newspaper. The newspaper, they only appear for 3 days. The website goes on from the day it first appears until the day it's received. So the website is actually on longer.
So, for example, on 725, there was only one potential bidder for $1,364,325.
That's not a sole bidder. That was competitively bid. This is extending it for a second year.
So there was more than one bidder on that?
There was, and there was a bid awarded last year, and it has the option to renew for a second and third year. And that's what this resolution is doing.
When I look through this, I just see a number of the sole bids, and I can't help but wonder if there's opportunity out there for companies. And I also always have a preference for companies in my own community. So even companies within Middlesex County that can use these contracts to generate workers for the county. And if there's other ways of putting out for bidding for these contracts, I would encourage the county to look at it, because competitive bidding always brings better value for the tax dollar than just having sole bids on a specific project.
Well, the sole bid is the result of people who respond to it. We don't solicit sole bids. We publicly advertise for an open competitive bid.
Right, I understand.
Anyone who's qualified can respond.
I understand. I just meant if there's additional ways that bidding could be done besides what's being done, so that there's fewer ones that are sole bids, and you have something to compare to as a benchmark. All right. And the second thing I had was regarding the resolutions from the Parks and Recreation from Ralph Albin here. The concerts by the bay, by the waterfront bay, when did they start doing that program?
We've been doing it for
Time.
3 years already, since,
That was time.
Rick, can you answer that question, how long we've been doing it?
In that program we've been doing, I've only been here 6 years, we've been doing it that entire time. That's an annual expenditure where we provide that for the
Thank you,
Okay.
Rick.
All right,
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Mr.
the time. Perhaps we could look at the Raritan River Club for some type of venue like that in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public on any resolutions?
Move to close the public portion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda and voted on separately?
Yes, Director, I have two. 13,697 and 13,701.
And I have 113,763. Anyone else? Nikki?
Thank you, Director. A motion is now in order to adopt the consent agenda consisting of resolution numbers 13-671 to 13-785, excluding resolution numbers 13-697, 13-701, and 13-763, which shall be voted on separately.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood?
Yes.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte?
Yes.
Freeholder Polos?
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rios?
Yes. Okay, now there would be a motion in order to adopt 13-697 and 13-701.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood?
Yes.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte?
Present, not voting.
Freeholder Polos?
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rios?
Yes. Now, a motion would be in order for motion for 13-763.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Armwood?
Yes.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte?
Yes.
Freeholder Polos?
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rios?
Present, not voting. At this time, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public on any discussion. Anyone from the public? Yes, sir.
Robert Spiegel, excuse me, 206 Tyler Road, Edison Wetlands Association. I am here tonight to discuss the Adams Farm homestead and also the larger issue of the county's involvement in the Dismal Swamp Conservation Area. Normally I don't, I prefer to work cooperatively and have a dialogue and discussions specifically with this issue because it's a regional issue, and the Dismal Swamp Conservation Area and the Adams Farm Preservation Area, or the homestead, is something that is just simply a unique gem and something that we appreciated the county stepping up a few years ago and making some of those acquisitions that were done. There was the 69-acre parcel that the county bought. I believe it was 69 acres in South Plainfield. There was the Adams Farm, and then there was also some other discussions of land to be bought. I'm here tonight to ask that the county really carefully consider what you do with the Adams Farm and the homestead and also the barn that's there. I have a picture of the Adams Farm and also a picture of Charlie Adams, who was just recently passed away and who lived there along with his, I believe, 9 or 8 brothers and sisters. While there was no formal agreement about the final disposition of the home, the understanding was always that once Mr. Adams passed away, once the home was no longer needed, that the house would be integrated into the overall proposals and plans for the Dismal Swamp Conservation Area. And right now, 3 townships are part of that Dismal Swamp Conservation Area, and the county is also members. I believe Freeholder Tamaro's one of the members from the county as well. That farmstead is now sits open and available, Mr. Adams having passed away, and something needs to be done with it. And that something does not really include it being demolished. The property was preserved with the intention and the understanding that it would be used. And there was supposed to be a subdivision there, and at the time, there was a lot of uproar that the subdivision was going to knock down this historic home. And Charlie Adams was such a character. He really was. You know, it's a shame you guys didn't have a chance to know him. I know that Rick had a chance to meet him a couple times. And he was a character because he grew up in that house. He grew up in that area. He had, I believe, 9 or 8 siblings. One of whom was killed on the property. And he took us on a tour, and every rock, every stick, everything that was there had a story. And we were fortunate enough, and I recorded it, and so you'll get a chance to see it, because Mr. Adams was very free with his knowledge and took us on a tour and showed us every speck of that property. But we need to move on whatever the freeholders would like to do. We had suggested that Edison Wetlands would be more than happy to manage it, because we manage the Triple C Ranch, we manage the adjacent 35 acres of land for the town of Edison. But if not, if you have other plans for it or other ideas for what you'd like to put there, we have no problem with somebody else managing it, as long as it's not left in the state that it's in with nobody at the helm there, and also that it's not knocked down. The barn there that was there now needs repair because of this Hurricane Sandy did damage part of the barn, but that could be repaired. This is an old historic house that had a lot of money put into it to renovate it so that Mr. Adams could live there. It has a new roof, new siding, all kinds of new things that were done to it with the anticipation that it would be there for the long term. And I would ask that freeholders go down and take a look at the home. It sends you back to another time and another place. And that farm had been a number of farms, including a dairy farm at one time, and had served a lot of purposes. You know, Mr. Adams was part of the history of the Dismal Swamp. His family was part of that history. And it would be a real shame to let the building go into the same shape as Edison let its properties when it had an opportunity to preserve property by the Stevens Preserve, and they let the Smith property, the home, fall into disrepair, and now it's beyond repair. And I would hate to see the same thing happen here. Worse, I would hate to see the county demolish that property and the barn. So I would ask that you really carefully consider what you want to do with it. Integrate it into the environmental education programs. Use it for a historical location. Use it for a terminus for the Greenway extension. Those are just a couple of ideas that people have suggested for its use, but certainly don't demolish it. Don't leave it to be demolished by nature by lack of maintenance. I see that the county is there on a frequent basis. They have their park rangers patrol. They're there quite frequently. I know that the lawns are mowed, but homes require maintenance. They require somebody to be inside. They require you to know if a pipe broke or something else broke so that it doesn't get flooded out, because that does as much damage to a home as anything. So, you know, when you look at this, I'd ask you to go in the next week or two, go take a look at the property, walk it, go look inside and look at the woodwork that they made that home with. That was built by them, by the Adams family. The woodwork alone is just spectacular. Take a look inside, take a look outside, walk around the property, and then think about what you ultimately want to do with it. But I would ask that you do something to benefit the Middlesex County residents and taxpayers that help to pay for it. Right now, we're doing a program every Tuesday and every Wednesday for the month of April and May with the second grade in Edison at the Triple C Ranch. come down and take a look at what we're doing. We have 1,000 second graders there. We would certainly welcome to have the freeholders come by and visit and see what we're doing down there in the northern part of the county in the Dismal Swamp Conservation
Thank
Area.
you for your comments. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Podgorski. I live 5 New York Boulevard. It's 2 doors away from Mr. Adamski's house. I'm very emotional about him because I became very personally close to him. His family and my wife's family both come from the same area in Poland. My wife spent endless hours, and my daughter, speaking with him in his native language, giving him food, ethnic food. The man passed away. The house is gorgeous. Destroying that whole house, it's not destroying something, it's a scar on the world. I go to visit my relatives in Europe. I live in houses there and stay there for weeks at a time that are 500 and 600 years old, and they're still lived in by same families. And we're going to destroy something that's about 100, 150 years old, and we can't even get the history that's in Europe in our own country. It's a shame that you would even consider knocking that building down, destroying that property. Here's a rock garden with rocks from all over the world. He's got pieces of stones from Auschwitz. You have to go there. You have to see it yourself. I personally put the new furnace in that house 6 years ago. I helped him fix his garden tractor. My daughter played in his garden. He's got an Alice in Wonderland garden maze in the backyard for kids. You really have to see this property and see it. You cannot sit there and not look at that property and then come back and say, we're going to knock it down after you look at it. Please, please take it into consideration. I implore you to take care of this piece of property. Give it to Mr. Spiegel as an office. Let him take care of it. I volunteered to help him work on it if it needs work. Something has to be done. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Jane Tausman, 14 Butler Road, Edison. I was one of the founders of the Save Our Swamp organization, which helped save the Dismal Swamp. This is a fantastic conservation area, and this farm should not be destroyed. It should be used as a learning center. You have cultural resources in Middlesex County. This could be one of your outstanding cultural resources to show the public what was and what can be. Also, it can be used as an educational tool to teach children, like Mr. Spiegel mentioned, those that are now going on tour at the Dismal Swamp, that you can use it as a tool to show the beautiful architecture and the beautiful lands that we have. Now, you're not alone in this. The state of New Jersey also decided that there should be a preservation area for the Dismal Swamp, and they saw fit to make it part of the municipal land use law of the state of New Jersey, that a commission be created and that commission should have jurisdiction over this particular piece of land as well as all the land in the Dismal Swamp. So I strongly urge all of you to go down, take a look at it, and see what you can do into making this a fantastic cultural resource for all the people of Middlesex County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Dana Patterson, 206 Tyler Road. I'm the program supervisor with Edison Wetlands Association, and I know a lot of people have been talking about the Adams Farm, but I just have a couple of questions if you guys can answer some of their concerns. What is the county's plan? As of right now, I mean, we've heard some of the freeholders say that it's going to be knocked down, and we've heard other things saying that you know, you're still looking at options. So at this time, can you guys tell me what are you talking about? What are your discussions? Because we'd like to know.
We
Well,
haven't had any discussions.
First of all, I'd like to say is there has never been a commitment by the county either way of what we were going to do with the house. Mr. Lear and Mr. Albanier had discussions with Mr. Spiegel in what their proposal would be, what to do with the house. Now, the county made no commitment as far as what we were doing. Mr. Lear's and Mr. Albanier's concerns were, and just to get Mr. Spiegel's proposal, is to see what the cost factor would be involved. Either A, if it's going to be cost effective to invest any dollars into that, and if it was going to be used, we had to be concerned with about a CO from Edison Township and making it ADA compliant. So these are factors that we had to take into consideration. So at this point, we're not making a commitment of what we're going to do with that at all.
I understand. I was at that meeting with Mr. Rick Lear. But we heard a conflicting story from Freeholder Tamaro saying that it was going to be knocked down just the other day. So I just wanted to get this story straight because I understand we were working with the Parks Department and Mr. Rick Lear, and then I got a conflicting story the other day. So I just want to we're trying to understand why we're hearing this, because we thought it was an ongoing process and we were going to work with the county and with the Parks Department.
The county never made the commitment that we were going to hand it over to anyone. I don't know if we have the authority to hand it over to a private organization, number one. Number two, we have to consider all the residents of Middlesex County and what the cost factor would be in investing money into that building. So at this point, we don't know what we're going to do with it at this point.
I understand that. I would just, Freeholder Tamaro, if you will, can you explain why you told Mr. Spiegel that it was going to be knocked down? Because when you tell us that, then we're going to react, because that's not what we were working on.
It was also spoken about at the meeting, too. It's an option. It's not definite, but it is an option.
The way it was presented was that it was happening, and so now we've created this, and we're trying to work cooperatively.
If you
we're trying to present a plan. We are going out and meeting with the Parks Department, and that's where we left it. And then we heard conflicting news, and we're not happy with that.
Mr. Lear again and Mr. Albanier had conversations with Mr. Spiegel back in January.
I was at that meeting. I understand.
Okay, and they told him to articulate a plan or proposal what to do with it. And it is right now April 19th, and he still hasn't received anything. So
I believe that we
and I'm not going
did
to go back and
send
forth
something.
on who said what was said, he said, she said. All I'm telling you is right now the county has made no commitment of what we're going to do with the building.
Okay, we are looking to work with you cooperatively. We're not saying that we have to take over the property, but we do not want to see that house knocked down. And so we are willing to do whatever it takes, and we've sent comments in after the January meeting on what we wanted to do, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that property is not knocked down. And that's where we stand. So if you could make sure that the story stays the same and that we're kept in the loop, then we'll be happy with that.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Yes, sir.
Director, just to support what you were saying, and this, not only has there not been discussion to knock it down, but I think as recently as today, I think Bob was emailed some questions about what the potential use could be, because that could determine what type of improvements may need to be. If it's in a caretaker, I believe you got an email today discussing or requesting some additional information, whether it would be for caretaker use, which would be one set of criteria for improvements. If it was going to be public access, it could be a different set of criteria. And I can tell you, and I think all the other members of the board agree, there's been no discussion to knock the building down. I'm sure there would be serious discussion about that in the future if that was going to be a consideration, but that hasn't been the case thus far. Am I right, Director?
Thank you. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jim Walsh. I live at 76 May Street in New Brunswick. Freeholder Director Rios, the rest of the Freeholder Board, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us tonight. As a Middlesex County resident, I can say that open space preservation is something that's very important to me. I think that there's very few places left in our state and our county, really, from what used to be here to protect and preserve. I think that turning this into an environmental education center where we can continue to educate young people about the importance of the environment is a good investment in our county and a good investment in our future. If you're interested in funding it, one thing you might consider doing is reinstating the penny on property taxes that was taken away by the county for
it's
open
still in
space
effect.
preservation.
Still in fact.
Didn't-
That was a 1 year.
That was
Oh, it was only
a
1 year?
year.
That's great. I'm glad that that's back. Maybe make it 2 cents. I'd pay a little bit more on my property taxes. 3 cents? Go to 4. But I'm really, it's open space preservation is important to me. I'm glad you guys are up on the numbers of how much we're taxing all of us great residents in Middlesex County. But it's something that's important to me. Edison Wetlands is an organization that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. They seem like they're very willing to run this facility. They run a facility nearby. I'm sure there's other great organizations in the county who would help support the county in doing that. And it's my hope that some sort of partnership that can be worked out to preserve this and help to preserve this for future generations and make sure that the history of that area is preserved. So thank you very much for working with Mr. Spiegel and Edison Wetlands and to come to some sort of positive conclusion for this.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? You had your 5 minutes, Mr. Spiegel.
I just wanted to
You had your 5 minutes. Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Charlie.
Meeting adjourned.